Hey everybody, it's Chuck, Cat Craft Games Studio. Happy Labor Day weekend. We're here in the workshop, only in the workshop because it's nasty out. It's like, I don't know, 82, 83 degrees, but 3,000% humidity. I don't have gills, so I can't breathe in this shit. It's terrible. We did, however, yesterday get to play some Pathfinder. My beautiful wife, her first time dungeon mastering uh, her own stuff, homebrewed, homebrewed world, homebrewed story, the whole kit and caboodle. And gentleman who plays Rooster in my game was kind enough to leave me this Lazurite India Pale Ale. So we're gonna celebrate Labor Day by not laboring and drinking beer. So there it is. So yeah, how are you guys doing? I hope you got to roll some dice this weekend. We did, like I said. Then today was kind of lame, and we cleaned a closet or two. That was not exciting, not exciting at all. So anyway, I thought you guys want to hang out and do some painting. I got these slick little columns for the tabletop. I cribbed this project off of Game Train Engineering, which is a great YouTube channel. Does really good stuff. Um, Basically, it's a half-inch by half-inch piece of pink XPS foam, and then about an inch piece here on either end that's been shaped, I don't know, about a quarter inch. Pull out a pair of calipers and I can give you an exact measurements. Uh, an eighth of an inch, 120 thousandths of an inch. I am a machinist by trade, so I do weird math and know weird measurements. So there it is. But black bombed them. I use PVA glue and black acrylic craft paint. Just get a giant jug of Elmer's glue for all my base coating. Jeremy, who I think is awesome, runs Black Magic Craft YouTube channel, which is also awesome. You guys should be watching his stuff without a doubt. He uses Mod Podge as the base for his, and I have in the past, but I think that stuff stinks terribly. I think it's just the worst. It smells like, I don't know, burning donkey ass. Maybe a donkey's ass that had been lit on fire by some kind of a trash dragon, like a dragon that makes its lair in I don't know, maybe a sewer or a very large cesspool or a landfill. But regardless, that stuff stinks. And it seems, at least in my experience, to not like humidity a whole lot. So that when it's damp, even after the stuff is cured, when it's damp, it wants to get really sticky and tacky, even if after you've applied it for, it's been on for 3 or 4 weeks. It just never cures. So there's that. I'm gonna sponge paint these guys. So I got these natural sponges. You get these at the craft store. A few bucks. You get a bag of them, different textures and stuff. I just nipped off a piece. You can see that I was playing around with colors earlier today. So what we're gonna use is some heather gray and some charcoal. Charcoal from Ceramcoat and the heather gray is from Anita's. Both are available at the Hobby Lobby. Obviously, you can't go get any today because it's Sunday, and Hobby Lobby is closed because, well, we're not going to get into that, but they're closed. So there it is. Politics. Their politics aside, they've got a pretty decent product line. We already talked about that, so whatever. So let's paint these guys up real quick. Hang out, bullshit, enjoy this great frosty beverage in my dungeon mastering. I turn it so you can see the carving on it, but I would spill, and that would suck because I just cleaned this room, and I don't want to have to do it again ever because I hate cleaning because I'm primarily lazy. So I got a couple little dabs of paint here and a sponge. I like these natural sponges because you can get a lot of texture off of just one snipping of it, and you don't really throw it away. So pick up a little bit of both paints and blend them until you get something that's a little bit lighter than, yeah, like that, like right there. That's good. I should get another fresh plate so you guys see better, but whatever. You can paint. You know how to paint, and then just dab. Move this in the camera there. Dab. There. And we're gonna get it like that, so it does look a little like natural stone. These look really cool, stuff like this on the tabletop when you've got other terrain out. I've got dungeon tiles similar to what the Black Magic Craft style would be. They're a 3x3 grid modular. It works really well. It's more XPS foam. I definitely suggest if you're gonna try anything like that out, check out Blackmagic Craft. There's also a Facebook group. It's a bunch of these guys got together to do their thing and build terrain, do tutorials. It's the Tabletop Crafters Guild. You got Jeremy from Blackmagic Craft. You got DM Scotty, who's kind of like the godfather of all this craziness. You have the DMG. He works primarily in cardboard. He's even working on his own game system, kind of like we are here. I mean, we're babies compared to him. He's been around for quite some time. My first set of tiles were based on his double corrugated cardboard, but I found that they were a little like flimsy, I guess, for me. I mentioned that I am a traveling dungeon master, so just getting those into the Jeep and traveling with them, something always folded or bent or broke or whatever. So, and I don't know, this foam stuff looks pretty damn cool if you ask me. So there it is. After these are all painted up, I'm just sticking them into a hunk of foam to dry for a few hours, and later today I'll fire up the paint booth and hit them with some polyurethane. Oh, that damn light's going bonkers. There we go. That's better. So there it is. Weekend, some painting, some D&D. I made 20 of these. I got an upcoming adventure in my long-running campaign where there's going to be a long hallway, and there's a thing with columns. I'd get further into it, but I know that one of my players for certain is going to be watching this, so I don't want to give anything away. She's actually sitting here watching right now. It's my wife, secrets out. She's painting a miniature for her game. We met an NPC named Jade, who seems to be some kind of celestial being. In my opinion, just straight up bitch. Not a fan. She snapped somebody to death, like literally didn't snap his neck, but chanted at him, snapped her fingers, and I think his eyeballs boiled, which seems to be a shitty way to go in the big scheme of things. If your eyeballs boil, that can't be good for you, your future, your career as he was just a peasant, and he was just a mouthy peasant. I personally would not have killed him, but so yeah, Jade. None of the players in the game seem to be quite fond of Jade. See, look at that. You get that nice stippling texture. It looks stone. It looks stone enough. That's why I got the paints side by side a little bit, so you can pick up a little darker, pick up a little lighter, and get it varied. I'm trying to avoid jamming the paint into those grooves there, so I just carved those grooves with the Proxxon. And I actually whipped out 21 of these silly things, but I experimented on one, and it was kind of the Frankenstein's monster pillars. Like, all he wanted was friends, but he ended up in the fire. Now, these things happen. Unfortunate monster as it is. So, but yeah, Pathfinder yesterday, I really enjoy. I've stuck with the D20 OGL stuff forever. I remember getting my first 3.5 Players Handbook. I bought it from, Jesus Christ, what was it? It's a GameStop now. It was like some video game store in the mall long, long ago. And man, I've just been hooked since. Pathfinder, I love the funky math, the weird tactical rules. Seems like you get a lot more of it in Pathfinder, D&D 3.5, D20 OGL stuff than you're getting in a lot of the current systems that are being released. Definitely, like, 5th edition seems to be a little less tactical. I've always thought that I would love to play war games like Warhammer and stuff, but I have a mortgage and I can't afford to play Warhammer. I have a mortgage and I like to eat food that costs more than 50-cent tacos. As much as 50-cent tacos are great. And Warhammer looks great because it's like a lot of painting and cool miniatures and weird tactical rules and stuff. Man, so expensive, so spendy. I can't justify spending that much money on a game that it becomes a second job playing, and I guess it becomes a third job playing, because your second job is putting together all the miniatures and painting them. And like anything else, when you pay to play, and you gotta buy more and more and more to be competitive and to have fun, because I'm competitive. I like competitive games. It just takes some of the joy out of playing games. When you got to spend cash on just survival, might as well play Monopoly. At least you're playing with fake cash, I guess. But again, Monopoly, you're playing with real feelings. So, I mean, I guess I'd rather crush people's real feelings than spend all my real money on a game that I'll probably never get to play anyway, because it would take me 3 or 4 years just to paint the army, because I'm meticulous, and if I screwed something up, it'd piss me off. I'd have to strip everything, and by that time, the next rule set would come out, and I'd need all new books and models, and then it'd be a never-ending cycle of spending money on shit that I never got to use. So I don't know. I've got a friend who's got. She will remain unnamed for this video, but she's got a closet of like 200 pairs of shoes. If she watches this, she's gonna know exactly who she is. She knows. But I just don't understand how you can wear 200 pairs of shoes. It'd be like, the Warhammer thing. I would have all these models. She has all these shoes. She never gets to wear them. I never get to play with my Warhammer models. And that's kind of hard, isn't it? Oh, see, I screwed that all up. It's all smearing, so I'm gonna have to stamp some dark on it. Anyway, models. That's it. Toys. That's all it is. We play with toys. I mean, when you're talking miniatures, be it tabletop role-playing games or war games, that little house I made last weekend, it was kind of a dollhouse. One of the guys I worked with watched the video and said, "Well, what are you doing making dollhouses now? Got enough going on?" No, well, you know what? Don't judge my 28mm dolls. Don't judge them. Don't judge me. That's fine. Move on with life, buddy. You got a toddler. You got things to do. You got more important things to do than judge me. You got a toddler to feed Hot Pockets and string cheese and shit. I mean, I don't know what kids eat. Like I said, we don't have kids. We don't plan on having kids. I actively avoid children. Not even that. I actively avoid almost everybody, to be completely honest with you. But yeah, no, don't judge. Don't judge. That's part of the thing we see a lot in our hobby is stigma from people saying, "Oh, you play role-playing games. Oh, Dungeons and Dragons. You're a big dork." Blah blah blah. And we're going through a renaissance right now. Is that Stranger Things happening? That driving this? It could be. You're seeing like celebrities like Vin Diesel and stuff coming out saying, "Yeah, I play." That's cool. But I'm gonna paint this last one up here, and then we're gonna talk about how to take care of your dungeon master, like the proper care and feeding of your DM. I don't mean like getting them pizza or tacos every time you play, which would be really awesome if my players ever said, "Here, Chuck, here's some pizza and tacos for dinner. We know you put a lot of work in your game, and we appreciate it. So we know you appreciate pizza and tacos. Have some." I'd say that'd be great, man. That's thank you, Broth and Calibus and Elia and Rooster and Croatian. And who am I missing? Rooster, Croatian. Matthias. Yeah, Mighty Matthias, the cleric of Jarami, who in my Greyhawk game was the god of volcanoes, arguments, and barbecue. They could even bring me barbecue. There's a great little barbecue joint down the street from where we play that game. Someone could just stop and get me some rib tips and some greens and some cornbread, and that would be awesome. But no, they bring Pringles, and I hate Pringles. I just can't stand them. They're not chips. They're not even potatoes. They're like, if you slightly rehydrated, like instant mashed potatoes, and then pressed them, through like some kind of weird pasta press. So, but feeding your GM, right? So I got a marker here. I just bought these. I'm very proud of these markers. But I got these gaming paper pads, so you guys and I can communicate without communicating. So you never have to see me face to face, which is obviously a terrible thing to have to do. Gaming paper pads, I love these things, man. I've been looking at these forever. I use a battle mat here. on top of terrain. The game we play, the away game, I guess, we have a custom built table with a plexiglass top and a hex grid. It works really well for us. But I figured something like this would be nice to have around for testing out rules, for testing out scenarios, and for scribbling and doodling. But we're going to talk about how you take care of your game master. Like, how do you feed them? What does a game master eat? You're a game master. I'm a game master. My wife's a game master. My buddy Ed's a game master. You need to be fed. You need sustenance. And if you're not a game master and you're a player, you need to feed your DM. It's your responsibility just not to show up. I mean, you think about it, DM puts a lot of work into their game. Well, for me, I guess, I'm not going to go into detail how much time I put into it because it would give away how little I actually give a shit about the fate of my players. Honestly, I could just dump a bunch of demonic giants in front of them, like half demon frost giants, and see what happens. Sit back, have a beer, relax, eat the tacos that I had to buy myself because no one bought me tacos. Anyway, what does a DM need for sustenance, though? Knowledge. You need knowledge. You need to run your game effectively. You need something that's going to drive your story. Pardon me. Frosty beverage. Thank you, Rooster. See, he fed the DM in a less existential kind of way. But no, as a DM, you got to feed yourself, and as a player, you have to provide your DM with some kind of sustenance. And that starts with your character, or it starts, if you're a DM, with your players' characters. And the best way to get that sustenance is just ask a few questions of them, or if you're a player, ask questions of yourself, and you can start with the basics, the basic questions that any writer is asking themselves when they're getting a story together, when they're putting together a plot, when they're trying to figure out how their characters interact. It's who, what, where, when, and why. That's everything to a tabletop role-playing game. It's everything to the game that you're going to run. It's everything in the game that you're going to play in. So these questions can be asked in all sorts of different ways. And we're going to use my character here, my brand new baby cleric, Kovash, as an example. Kovash is a cleric of the god of magic. Kovash always wanted to be a wizard, but he's not a very smart man. Average intelligence at best, and not charismatic enough to be a sorcerer. So he always muddled over those arcane formulae, which would give you spells. But he was taken in by another priest of magic, of the magic god, into the temple, and he learned magic, different kind of magic, not the way of magic that he wanted, but it's something. And now he's out seeking a way to find magic. But what is his backstory? What is my Dungeon Master going to work with? What are they going to get out of this from me that they need to eat, to sustain themselves, and to keep driving their game? So let's start with who. Let's use a red marker because I like red. It's like blood, which we shed so much of in D&D. Who? Not like an owl, but who? Scoot that over a little bit for you guys. Who? You could ask who of a lot of things, a lot of ways. You could ask, well, who is Kovash? Well, you could go either side of the spectrum with that. It's either super basic, like, okay, Kovash, his name is Kovash Klauvsh, and he's a cleric. And for some players, especially new players, that's going to be about where you get with it. That's as far as you're going to get with that question. Or you could go like the far off the deep end, existential, and say, well, who is Kovash? And really look for some weird Freudian answer that most players are going to be uncomfortable giving you. So look at who in a different way, not who is that, but like, who did Kovash grow up with? That's a good one for a character, for a new character. When you're building backstory, who did he grow up with? Well, he was an only child. Kovash was the only child of his mother and father, whose names were, we will call them Alexi. No, we can't do that because Alexi's our wizard's name. Well, that's unfortunate. This is where we get our handy dandy paper towel eraser. because I think Alexi might actually be watching. I'm surprised he hasn't chimed in and sent me a text or something like that. So his father's name was Dimitri. Dimitri. And his mother's name was Marta. Dimitri and Marta were his parents. He grew up with them. They were fisher folk. They owned a boat. They would catch fish on the river where they lived, and they would take it to town and sell it, sell their catch every day. Come home, and that would be it. Redo the next day. Well, constantly busy on the river, away from towns. Kovash didn't have friends to grow up with. He grew up with his family, with his parents. And that's how he kind of got this idea that the wizards that he idolized were so fantastic. You know, bedtime stories from his mother, weird little made up. Maybe that he and his father on the boat played little word association role playing games or something like that. And Kovash always graduated or gravitated towards something about a wizard. So there it is. Who did your character grow up with? Kovash grew up with his parents. You could get all sorts of different responses from this. You know, if your character or your player's character grew up in a city, you could all of a sudden have a list of 5 kids that this guy grew up with, and then what are they doing? So that leads us into who. Now we're at what happened to all these people? What happened? You got to forgive my absolutely terrible handwriting. But what happened to these people? What happened to the people he grew up with? What happened? Well, Kovash, his parents are dead. And he has great guilt about this because on one of his last ditch efforts to join a wizard's college, his parents were supposed to already be retired from the business. He was supposed to have taken over the fishing boat, found himself a little fishing wife, and be running the company business, supporting his parents in their retirement. But he had a shot, he had a chance to get to college, to become that powerful wizard that he always wanted to be. And he went. While he was gone, his parents decided that they would tend to the boat while he was gone. He was only going to be gone for a couple weeks. It was only a couple more weeks of working before they could enjoy their retirement, enjoy sunsets and sunrises on the river, and have their son support them the way they had supported him his whole life. Well, while Kovash was out in town, trying and failing to get into Wizards College, his folks out fishing, the boat sank. They died. By the time Kovash got back, their corpses had been taken from the river. They had been given the rites, the rituals, and buried at their homestead. Kovash, with a great burden of guilt, left, went into the house, grabbed his few personal belongings that he felt were his, closed the door behind him, and walked away. Never looked back. So that's what happened to the people Kovash grew up with, and it's not a pretty picture. So who, what, where? What kind of questions can we get for where? Where? We'll put some question marks after all these so that we know that we're asking questions. Where? You can do a lot for where. Where did Kovash grow up? That's a pretty basic one. He grew up near a river. Big, large river. In the world we're playing in, there are 3 rivers that connect the continents. That's kind of basic. You know, where did he grow up? Where did he grow up? And then expound on that idea. Where did he grow up? What was the closest city? So, all right, I already told you that he would go to this city with his parents every day to sell their catch. So, all right, he went to the city, near the city. He was from the city, all right, from north of the city. The river flows to the south towards the center of the land. What else could you ask for where? Where was he born? He was born in his family's home, you know, an only child, maybe a traveling cleric helped his mother birth him. Where did the fishing boat go? It stayed there on the side of the river. Whoever happens to stumble across that house, that abandoned home, is going to get themselves a nice river fishing boat and a home Maybe it's haunted with the spirits of two angry dead Russian-sounding parents. Uh, where is Kovash heading? That one is the most important to me playing him. Kovash is heading wherever he can go to find knowledge. He feels that by learning more, he is going to get a better chance at becoming an arcane magic user. So where is he going? He was traveling. We were told that our characters were traveling. Where is he going? He was going to the far eastern continent in our world, because in the north there are worldly celestials, and in the south there are worldly infernals. I'm sorry, the east and the west. Is that correct? East and west.
Yeah.
So he was headed to where the infernals make their domain, feeling that he was from a land close to the celestials. So any information he might gain from them was probably already known by somebody else. Somebody knew, even if it wasn't common knowledge, somebody already knew it. So he was going to trek his way to the land of the infernals to find their libraries, to ask questions of their magistrates. So, no, how about when? Who, what, where, when? What's when? Man, when? There's another. All these are great open-ended questions that you can do anything with. When was he born? Well, 25 years ago. Kovash is 25 years, a little bit older than what you would think of a first-level character, a human, because he spent so much time trying to be a wizard. I might actually boost that up, maybe in his early 30s or something like that, whereas folks really had to push into their retirement trying to support his failed dream of becoming a wizard. So when was he born? When did his parents die? Recently, I mean, he's just a first level cleric. He's just got his first spells he can cast. When did he decide to join the church? Well, he didn't really decide. He was kind of taken up in his grief by a priest who saw something in him. When I mentioned Kovash has a book he absolutely loves. When did Kovash find this book? This book he loves is a diary that a traveling wizard had dropped. Not a spell book, not a book of arcane knowledge by any stretch of the imagination, just a little journal, sketchbook, doodle book, I guess. I carry a doodle book in my pocket a lot for when I get ideas or when I need to sketch something out or whatever. So a wizard's doodle book, it's got some arcane-ish looking things, but it doesn't have any true knowledge. But that's Kovash's prized possession. When he left his parents' home after he said goodbye to them at their graves, that was one of the few things he took. He grabbed his backpack, he grabbed his bedroll that he would use when he'd sleep out on the boat. He grabbed his walking stick, and he grabbed his book. When did he get that book? He probably found that when he was a teenager, when he was really full on in this quest to become a wizard. Maybe he was making a trip to the city while his mom was unwell and his dad was taking care of him. So Kovash was taking the catch to the city, and on the way back, he found an abandoned campsite with a fire still burning, smoldering, not burning, carelessly put out. And again, carelessly, the wizard who had been camping there had let this little doodle book, this little pocket notebook, fall out of his robes. And Kovash picked that up. So when did he get that? He got that. Let's see. Let's boost his age up to 32. So he probably had that responsible enough to go to town on his own in a medieval fantasy setting. 14, maybe. So he's had that for almost 20 years. So he's had it for a long time. He got his book. When did he get his book? Now he reads his book frequently, every day, every night, trying to get something. The other PCs, Alexi the wizard, and Gimbal the gnome pyromaniac. Gimbal had, I think, 14 or 15 total names, but said you could call me Gimbal as he ran off, hid, and lit something on fire. So Gimbal and Alexi have never really seen the book. They know Kovash has a book. They know he reads it every day. But Kovash keeps it wrapped up in fine, soft, durable material, and then wraps that up in oilcloth so that it won't get wet or damaged. So, who, what, where, when, why? Why? Ooh, that one can get deep. This one I think can get, of all of them, it can get the most deep. Why? Why did Kovash go adventuring? Well, we already know that. We know that he went out to find knowledge. He still wants to be a wizard. Even though he's a priest, he wants to be a wizard. You're a wizard, Harry. Kovash does not look like Hagrid. That would be like copyright infringement or something, I'm sure. Although I'm sure there's tons of Hagrid barbarians out there, and I'm sure there's 2 tons of Dumbledore wizards and a trillion little Harry Potters running around the world, of the worlds, I guess, of D&D. So, this is a really good beer, guys. I don't know if you're into IPAs or if you can find it in your area. Generally, I like mine a little more floral and less bitter, with a good malt backbone. This one's got the malt. It's a little more on the bitter side than the floral side. But look at that can. It's all black. It's all black with a black top. The bottom's not black. But I don't know if you can see the art. It's like a demon riding a skeletal horse with a crescent moon behind it. I mean, you really, geez, guys, look at that. That's the beer of nightmares. Ah. Anyway, why? Why did Kovash want to be a wizard? There's a good one. Why wasn't he happy just being a fisherman? His father's father was. That boat had probably been around and repaired over and over again for generations. Why? There's so many whys that you can ask yourself or your players. How about, why is Kovash so tolerant of these strangers he's traveling with? So when we started our game, we were in absolutely different parts of not a city, not a county, not a continent, not a country, not a world. We were just across the globe from each other. And I didn't know how that was going to work. I thought that was a pretty cool concept, interesting way to start. And we got basically magic zapped by some jerk with a glowing green book into a portal where we ended up in a quaint little village. It was under attack by cultists, which, proud to say, Kovash destroyed. Anyway, but so I ended up with this racist, very rude elven wizard named Alexi, who won't even use Kovash's name. It won't even use Gimble's name. It calls us cleric, calls Kovash cleric, and he calls Gimble, the gnome, mini dwarf or something like that. Won't even call him gnome, just called him halfling, called him dwarf. Gimble obviously took great offense. So why is Kovash so tolerant to be in the company of strangers, to travel with them, to freely take up the mantle of, all right, I'm going to protect these strange villagers from this cult? So why? There's some really good whys right there. So why is Kovash tolerant of traveling with them? Well, he can learn from them. And that's his whole thing, is learning. And especially Alexi being a wizard. So knowledge. Knowledge. I'm going to do that all caps because knowledge is all important to Kovash. Oh, wow. I skipped who, what, where, when, why. Oh, how is next. So knowledge. That's why he's willing to travel with these guys, to tolerate having a gnome pull pranks constantly and being treated poorly by a destitute wizard who'd been trying to sell his wizarding ways and his power to the highest bidder. But he's a first level wizard. He can cast magic missile and mage hand. Maybe he can't even cast knock. So he's a miserably poor wizard. Why will Kovash deal with these guys? Well, Kovash takes notes on everything he does, everything he sees, and everything he learns. and he's never met these guys. They're from completely different places than he's from or he's ever traveled to. So not only does he need backup in this new land, he needs to know the life experience from these two other people. So he's happy to heal them after combat, or to help them when they're ill, or to back them up in a fight, or to feed them when they're hungry, which is the first thing he did for Gimbal. Was he fed Gimbal, who had just escaped from prison and had not eaten in days. Why does Kovash tolerate these assholes that he's traveling with? Because let's face it, a lot of times the other players, characters in your game, I would say 40 to 60% of them are just unmitigated assholes. Why is he traveling with these assholes so willingly and happily? Because he can learn from them. And that's his thing. He's learning. He needs to know more about what's going on, not in his immediate circle, not things that he could take attacks of opportunity against, 5 feet away, but things that he could not see, touch, hear, feel, taste with his own senses. He wants to learn the experiences of other people. And from Alexei, he wants to learn magic. So who, what, where, when, why? Who, what, where, when, why? How? How? We have how left. We've already gotten a lot of how. So no matter which way you construct your little questionnaire, and that's how I suggest you do this. Either do a questionnaire that works, that you can hand out at your table. One-on-one, conversation is better than multiple choice or little essays. A lot of times, we're adults. I'm an adult. This is geared towards, I think, the way I'm explaining things is geared towards adult players. My language is definitely geared towards adults, but they're not going to have time a lot of times to sit down and fill out your essay questions, because we've got to go to work and we've got to do the dishes and we've got to mow the lawn. We've got pets and kids to take care of. Well, we have pets to take care of. I don't have kids to take care of. You kids with kids, have fun with kids. So the best way to do this, I think, is you don't have to do it before your game starts. You don't have to do it session 0 or 0.5 or session 1, but do it sooner rather than later, and do it in person if you can. Meet up with them for a beer. Say, hey, let's go to our corner bar. Let's go to the tavern, and we'll have a couple cold ones. We'll sit off in the corner, away from anyone who might walk in and want to bother us. I'm gonna bring a little pocket notebook, much like Kovash's book. There you go. And I'm just gonna ask you a few questions about your character. Just a few questions, and you'll get into, for a good player, you'll get into an hour and a half, or even longer conversation about that character, about what your player sees their character as. And that's how you feed yourself. That's how you're going to eat. And that is the best sustenance you can ever get as a game master, is free knowledge from your players. It might cost you a beer or two. If you're with a buddy who's a beer guy like me, you trade a couple rounds, everyone leaves happy, walks home. Walks. You, after too many beers, you walk home. You don't drive. Don't drive. So yeah, do it face to face. You can get all sorts of great conversation strings going. Don't go when your favorite sports team's on. Football season's right around the corner. I'm a Bears fan. Bear down Chicago Bears. That shit is not worth watching. So we could go during a Bears game and be good to go. So let's get back to how. We don't want that marker. We want the black marker. Black marker for answers. Red marker for questions. Who did Kovash grow up with? What happened? I mean, that's what happened. We all know. Family died. Terrible. Tragic. Where's he going? When did he get his book? Why is he so tolerant of these assholes he's traveling with? And then the how. How is the last one? How did Kovash feel when he found out his family died? Feelings, especially if you can draw your player into answering about feelings. And a lot of people won't do it because they're uncomfortable talking about their own feelings, let alone talking about the feelings for an imaginary version of them. Because I don't care what anybody says about the characters they make. They're always investing some of their self into that character. They're envisioning at least a small part, probably even more than a small part of themselves into that collection of numbers on that piece of paper. So some people won't want to get touchy-feely with questions about that. They'll be more likely to do it if you're doing it one-on-one, though, rather than doing it in a group setting. So, how did Kovash feel when his family died, or when he found out they died? Because they died while he was, off playing around with wizards and stuff at Hogwarts or whatever. He's miserable, terrible. It's his fault that his family's dead. It's his fault that they were on the boat. It's his fault they were out fishing. It's his fault he wasn't there to save them, to be doing what they did. He was young and strong. They were not. They were old and they were frail. That was not where they should have been. They should have been on the patio of their little house watching Kovash haul in the nets. They should have been enjoying a cup of tea and reminiscing about the good old days while Kovash was out there in the middle of the river making a living. But no, he was out trying to be a wizard, which didn't happen anyway. And from his mind, probably never will, because he's terrible at arcane magic. He seems to have a knack for divine magic, but he's terrible at arcane magic. So how does he feel? He's a wreck. He's an absolute wreck. He carries that guilt with him every day. And no matter how powerful he ever becomes, he's never going to be able to bring back his parents who supported him while he was trying to achieve his biggest and brightest dream. So he's just miserable. How does he feel about the loss of his parents? He feels like it's all his fault. He feels like there is no recourse and there's no way for him to gain redemption for the death of his parents because he caused it. So how does Kovash feel? He feels bad. We'll put that in caps. Bad, Kovash. And I would, the way I play, I don't get a lot of opportunity to play as a PC. I'm generally running games. I would hope that my dungeon master would really grind on that. Not to the point where it becomes a sore spot, not to the point where it becomes embarrassing, or that's all that my character ever does is, deal with existential dread and a burgeoning guilt-driven alcoholism. But I really want the tidbits that I give my dungeon master to be used. I want to be involved in not just playing the game, but I want to be involved in the game. I love world building. It is so much fun as a dungeon master or as a player. And every opportunity you get to be involved, at least for me, is a lot of fun. You get a lot out of it. You get more out of it than you put into it, energy wise, fun wise. You just get so much. So I want my dungeon master to use these to her advantage, so it becomes to my advantage. So there it is. And we know a little bit about Kovash, a little bit more. He still wants to be a wizard. Probably never will be. But he's like a Russian dude. He's got one of those big furry Russian hats, but he's played with it to the point where now it's pointy like a wizard hat. Like he's smushed it and stretched it and like trimmed the fur, so it's like a pointy wizard hat with a brim. So Kovash Klausch, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Do this with your players. Do this for your dungeon master. Just invest some time. Make it worth your GM's time because they put time into your game. You guys play 4 hours every week. Do the math on that. How many hours are you spending a year playing? How many hours do you think they have to spend planning to play? I love to plan my games. I do. But help is always nice. When my players give me a great backstory, that's 70% of my work is done for me. I have that to work off of. Let your players help you do the work. And if you're a player, help your DM do the work because it's awesome. It's great. It makes for a fun time for everyone. And it builds your community at your table. It's worth it. Trust me, do it. Happy Labor Day, everyone. Thanks for dropping in. I hope you have a good weekend. Tomorrow, I hope you guys are all off work. I know I am. we're gonna take a trip to Hobby Lobby and stock up on paint and stuff. So that'll be cool. So you guys have a great weekend. Talk to you later. Happy gaming.